Director's report. Please take it away.
Awesome. Hey guys, nice to see you today. Hey Jimmy. So I didn't add this to the agenda and I meant to, but I just an oversight. I think last time we spoke, I had said we were going to have our team join in to introduce themselves to you. So we're really excited that we have Bianca Bell and Natalie Jones joining us. So I was hoping before, just at the top of the hour, and that way, they don't have to stay for the whole meeting as well. But if they can introduce themselves, just so you're familiar with them. The other individual on our team is Courtney Sales. She's our Disability Resource Coordinator, but she's not on this call because she is actually at another commission meeting and she handles everything with accommodations. But Bianca and Natalie joined this year and are investigating ordinance complaints. So Bianca, I don't know if you want to start us off, and then Natalie, just want to share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon or good evening, rather, everyone. My name is Bianca Bell. I'm brand new to OHR. I began in July of this year. I've worked in the civil rights arena for about 10 years now, predominantly in the federal workspace, but I'm really excited to assist and get to learn about the commission and dig in and hopefully join you on future meetings.
Thanks, Bianca.
Hi, I'm having an issue with my camera, but I am Natalie Jones. I'm happy to be a part of the team. I joined the Human Rights Office in the end of April of this year. I am a licensed attorney. I practiced employment discrimination for over 10 years, and I'm happy to be a part of the team.
Thanks so much, Natalie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks to meet you both, and Natalie. This might be the first, Teams meeting I've had in I don't know how long with no tech problems. So I feel your pain.
I'm gonna keep working on
it. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. And I'll just dive right in. I know you have a few things on the agenda. So I think one of the two things is to get off right off the bat is we do have one extension, and that's primarily due to just difficulty in reaching the complainant and getting them to respond. So if you at some point, you could do it now or later, just need a motion to extend, and then a second to confirm that. And if you guys want to vote on it, that'd be great. And we also do have a request for an appeal, which we will be scheduling in October. And we'll give you more information before the appeal in terms of going into closed session and the standard and all of that. In fact, maybe we can, try to brief you a little bit at some point on that. But I did want to get those two kind of like administrative logistics stuff out of the way. So Jimmy, I don't know if you want to vote on that or.
Sorry, it question, Gary. Is the extension different than what we had on agenda item 6 on extensions, or is that the same thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the same thing. My apologies. I had it up and then in my thing, I put it down in my report. So sorry. And also I meant, yeah, and I did misspeak. Under the ordinance, folks actually request a review of our discretion, not an appeal. So the correct term is a review. So thanks, Anna, for correcting me on that one. So having said that, I will move right into two other minor items before the main piece, which is, Jimmy, you had asked about EEO appointments, employee appointments. So just a heads up that we are gathering recommendations from staff, department heads to see if there are any folks they want to recommend to the county manager for his consideration. And then I'll be checking back with him later this month to see if there's if he's ready to make 2 appointments. There'll be 2 employee members for the EEO standing subcommittee. And as far as you had also asked for an update on the conversations with Fairfax regarding their relationship with HUD. So we are coordinating that call next week. So I'll have some more information following that call. And I think,
was there the update of the current and pending complaints? Like, how many are in the field? What type of complaints we're hearing?
Yeah, so that's where exactly I was going to next. I just wanted to get some of this. There were some things I didn't put in the agenda that were just administrative logistical that I wanted to get out of the way. But Anna was actually going to.
Then we'll ask you questions.
Awesome. So Anna was actually going to take that away. General update on complaints and stats.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share just a little PowerPoint. Hopefully, if I can make all of my screens work together, just so you guys can see what we have. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this is just an overview of where we are with our ordinance cases as of today. We currently have 34 active investigations. 22 of those are employment, 11 housing, and we just have 1 public accommodation case that we're working right now. These are the most frequently claimed bases across all of the case types that we are currently working on. Retaliation being 15, disability basis is 11, sex 7, color 2, and race 2. And then we're going to break this down a little bit by each type of complaint that we may have. So for employment, the top most claimed bases that we have are retaliation. That's typically the most frequently claimed base across any kind of complaint that we see. And then sex and disability. And one important point to make about these bases is that a complainant can claim more than 1 basis in any particular charge. So they're not going to necessarily add up to, there's not just 1 basis per charge. People can make multiple basis claims or allegations under multiple bases. In housing, most frequently claimed is disability, then race and retaliation. Those are the ones that we're seeing right now. And these are sort of where our cases are in terms of the process from beginning to end as we work through processing the case. Intake means that the person has submitted a complaint inquiry form. Typically, those come to us through our website. We make contact with them, and then we determine whether or not we can accept the claim and go through the development of the complaint with them. So we have 4 in that basis, or in that stage right now. Served means that we have accepted the complaint and we have served the complaint on the respondent, letting them know that a complaint has been filed. They received the complaint from us and other documents. And then there's a period of time where they're allowed to make their response. That's typically around 30 days. Sometimes it's a little longer if they need a little bit more time, but there's sort of a period there after the complaint has been filed when it's served and not much is happening while the respondent has the opportunity to prepare their response. The majority of our cases are in the investigation or decision review stage. That's sort of a broad stage where there's something going on in the investigation. We're gathering information, we're interviewing witnesses, we're working with the parties to try to determine where we're going to go with the complaint. And then we're drafting the review or drafting the decision, and then that process of reviewing the decision before it's issued. We have 4 that we are attempting to resolve at this time. That's not uncommon that we try to resolve cases if we can. If the parties are interested in doing that, we're always amenable to helping to bring these to an early conclusion. So we have 4 that we're working on currently on trying to get to a resolution. We have 4 that we have issued the determination. When we issue the determination to the complainant, they have 10 business days to request a review of that decision if they want to do that and bring it to the Human Rights Commission. So we have 4 that are out right now. And if those complainants within that 10-day period notify us that they want to request a review, then of course we will let you know. And then we do have the 1 case that Gurjeet mentioned that we have a request for a review on that, and we'll need to get that scheduled. And we'll provide more information about all of that and how that works when we get to that point. And our closure type. No,
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's okay. Just wanted to kind of give you an overview of our case closure statuses. This is just year to date. We have closed 7 as no reasonable grounds or no cause. We have settled 5, so that means the parties have reached an agreement, and the claim is withdrawn because they have agreed to withdraw the complaint and settled it with the respondent. We had one cause finding and one was withdrawn. It just the complainant chose not to proceed and go forward. So that's just an overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about those statistics and kind of where we are right now.
Anna, thank you. That's really helpful. Are you able to share what the case was where they found cause, a little more details of like what was the underlying complaint? If they're like, was it referred for prosecution or what happened there?
That one was one I can't share like details about the details of the case, but I can tell you that there was a situation where the complainant decided not to proceed with trying to conciliate and told us they wanted to, they were going to go and remove themselves. Typically, when we have a cause finding, then we try to conciliate. That's the first step.
Yeah,
that's what we're supposed to do. This complainant didn't want to participate in that process with us anymore and wanted to take their decision and be done. And so that that was their choice. They didn't want to do that. So. Does that make sense?
So,
it looks like it does.
No,
I'm not being clear about that.
So like, what is the difference between for cause and withdrawing then?
So the withdrawn is before the investigation is complete. Somebody says, I don't want to, I don't want to go any further with my complaint. I want to withdraw it. And we're in the middle of it. What's that?
Okay, so the causal finding is that your office found cause that there was discrimination.
Yeah.
And then I guess my question, because we don't know was it employment? Was it housing? Because those have different remedies. Because my understanding is for like housing, it should then be referred for like to the Commonwealth's attorney or to the state.
Yeah, so we don't do that under our ordinance. We never refer the Commonwealth attorney or state, anything like that. If you look at the ordinance, basically our process ends with if there's a review requested, then you would review that under an abuse of discretion standard, not a de novo standard. And so if there was abuse of discretion found for some reason, for example, maybe there was something missing or we had to interview somebody that we completely left out, we would you'd kind of send it back almost like a remand, right? And then we do that. There is mention in the ordinance of subpoena powers. I don't know if that's still in there after the update. I think it might still be though. I believe it is. In terms of enforcing something, say the decision came out where there was something that was recommended and was not done. Like, I don't know. I mean, we don't typically recommend trainings in our decisions, but say something was recommended and the respondent didn't do it. And then it came to light, the complainant perhaps wrote us a letter and said, this was ordered in the decision or recommended and it hasn't been done. You could take action to try to enforce that, but you'd have to get approval from the county board and advice from the county attorney. We don't send things to, we don't actively send something off to the Commonwealth's attorney for prosecution or anything like that. We do refer things out if they're not within our jurisdiction. And we always tell folks about the EEOC because when it comes to employment.
Maggie, any follow-ups?
Not at the moment, but I guess I'm trying to figure out if we don't do anything after we find cause of is there any
what happens, right?
What happens? Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah, I'm wondering the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean, where does it go? Nothing happens to it, or?
Well, I think what might help is if you want, we could do maybe offline, look at which ones you're talking about, the closure specifically, because we don't have, I think when we're looking at the stats, we don't too often have cause findings. And we could discuss separately. So, because we don't have those cases on hand in terms of the details to pull up and discuss. And we probably don't want to in this form anyway.
Right. I mean, so I guess, so you said there's one where cause was found, correct?
Yeah.
And there's one this year. And that's the one you're referring to? Okay.
Yes,
and then when you go ahead.
No, we have one so far this year. And we were not able to settle it with them. All
right. So cause is found. And so I guess I have two questions. One, I think this is kind of a question that's been asked, but without getting into the specifics of that particular case, I mean, is it a correct understanding that if the commission finds cause, and the respondent says, okay, thank you very much, you found cause, I'm not doing anything, the policy has been there's no further process?
Okay, so I have to pull up, I mean, I think you're talking, I think that's a part of the ordinance where you're talking about conciliation too, if I'm recalling correctly, right, Anna? If there's like decision to
Yeah.
conciliate or not, and then in certain circumstances, it can be referred to the commission where conciliation isn't successful. But I think that's within the office's discretion, and then the commission can choose to hold a hearing on it.
Well, I think my question is more, it's not necessarily whether if there is a causal finding, if it comes to the commission, it's what does your office do if you find cause? Because I feel like there should be something.
What
We
does
attempt
accountability
to-
look like?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
attempt to
okay.
conciliate it with the parties, and we always are able to do that. If we can conciliate it, that's what the attempt is, made initially, where we bring the parties together and say, okay, we found cause, now we need to figure out how to resolve this issue. But if the complainant chooses not to participate in
Right. I understand if the complainant doesn't choose, but if the person, I'm forgetting the term, like the person that caused the harm, that you found the cause, like what happens then if they are not conciliatory? Like I understand if you're the complainant and walk away, fine, that's your right. But if you find cause and can't reach a reconciliation agreement, what happens to the person that discriminated?
So then I think that's, Gurjit, isn't that where the ability to determine whether or not you want to hold a public hearing comes
I think in certain circumstances, like if they're, and there's a part of the ordinance, I was literally just trying to pull it up. Obviously, it's a long ordinance, so I don't have it here by heart, and we have very rarely have cause findings. That's another piece of it. I think this is the first one, and like, I can't remember, I'd have to look, but I don't know if we had any last year. But I think if that's where the part of the ordinance talks about conciliation and whether or not it fails, and there the potential to hold a public hearing on it. So again, I don't have the information right in front of me. It might be a better use of time for me to look into that and get back to you on it. Just a suggestion. So because I know you have a few other things on the agenda, and I think I understand your question, Maggie. So I can.
Yeah. So I have the ordinance up. And it says an event conciliation fails, conduct hearings or take other appropriate action concerning violations of this chapter. My question is, what are those actions? Like, it doesn't need to be a hearing, but like if there's a finding of employment discrimination, I feel like there's a duty to do more of a step than the person that discriminated just basically gets we found you discriminated and there's no enforcement.
Well, I think that would be something the commission would have to discuss and what those other steps would be. You know what I mean? Like if that's something you want to do to further enforce the ordinance, that's probably a discussion you want to have on that. Because those are within, I think, under your powers under the ordinance to determine how to, what you might want to do in that step. We've talked at some points in the past about if we found, for example, employment discrimination, of recommending certain kinds of training for the workforce that the respondent should do. But again, it just has not come up. Usually there are not cause findings because frankly, the way it typically works is you have unfortunately pro se complainants and they don't often make out their case.
And I understand that, but I feel like we really, at a bare minimum, should know what those next steps are, because just in general, why would people conciliate if there's no accountability for them not to?
I mean, usually when they conciliate, they end up getting it ends up in some kind of a settlement, right? Or they'll settle for some kind of monetary amount. That's usually what ends up. It's not like they're settling for like, okay, we'll agree to do this training or do that. It's usually that's what happens. But
I understand the concept. I'm saying I'm troubled by there not being an enforcement if you don't reach a conciliation agreement.
If you look at Maggie, if you look towards further on in that ordinance, because I was having the same exact concern you are.
Yeah.
And if you look at the last couple, in section 31.7 E2 and then 31.8, I think it does talk about enforcement and next steps that could take place. It isn't.
Yeah, so I know there's a whole section on it. I just don't have it. And I think that was I don't know if that was changed in the last round and updated.
Right. I understand these are the powers available. I'm asking what the office does.
Yeah, so I think Maggie, I mentioned, I mean, I kind of, this is the first one we've done where we've had a cause finding in a long time, literally. So I think it might warrant another conversation on that. I don't think I'm gonna be able to answer your question right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've probably beaten this point about as far as we can. I think, my primary concern would be, and it sounds like this isn't something that happens very often if this is the first cause finding in a while. I would certainly not want this to be a situation where if there is a cause finding, number one, if there's no further remedy at that point, I mean, that's something we should know because that's something the commission should try to fix. And number two, I certainly wouldn't want a situation where there's a cause finding and the commission doesn't find out about it. So maybe those are two areas we can discuss, making sure we've got procedures in place so that if it gets to that point, I get it, not very often, but if and when it does, that gets brought before the commission and we have procedures in place to actually figure out what we can do to remedy the situation rather than having it get lost. And I did have a follow-up question because I'm not as familiar with what the standards are for us to go into a closed session if the commission wanted to discuss some of these particular cases at some point in greater detail.
I mean, so that's never been done in the past. I think that would we can get you the procedures as far as the standards on what warrants going into a closed session. That would be coming, I can get some kind of, I'm sure that's in the code, and we can get that from the county attorney's office to send to you so you can interpret it for yourselves and see it. If you have questions, we can answer this for you and when you can. But the main time you've gone into closed session in the past is when there is an appeal to be, is a review to be heard, excuse me, or say something comes up that needs to be shared with the commission, but that's more of a personnel matter. That never comes up because clearly you're not involved in the county's internal, but say there was something we needed to explain related to investigation that had to do with a personnel matter, right? Or something like that, we might go into closed session items of a confidential nature. We wouldn't just go talk about that in a public setting, but we can get you that information. And there are certain steps you have to take to properly go into a closed session, and we can get you those too. And then to reopen it up after the review, and after your discussion and decision is made, to go back into the open session.
Okay, well, that sounds good because I would like to know more about this particular cause case and what the trajectory is and what's happened thus far. And I know, for everyone's benefits, there's a lot of times that as the chair, I have back and forth with Gurjeet because we can't be emailing everybody on the commission because then we run afoul of open meeting rules. But for something like this, if the full commission wanted to be involved, I would want to make sure that we had whatever system is set up where we can openly discuss this, whether that's in a closed forum, whatever that is. I would want to know what those procedures are so that the whole commission can participate to the extent the commission desires to. Any other follow-up questions that haven't been asked yet on the report that we just received or on the general update that preceded it? I had one and I might have missed it, but do we have an ETA on when the county manager is likely to make those appointments? I know Maggie is eager to get her committee going.
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the outset, that was one of the things that Mark is, the county manager is getting recommendations this month. So I will be checking in with him later in the month to see if there are folks he's considering, and I'm hoping that he can make an appointment later this month, if not early next month. I mean, you already know, Maggie, the committee meets like 2 to 4 times a year, depending on how you decide. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know.
Right on. If we could, anything we could do to keep pressure on to try to get that done before the next meeting would be great, so we can actually get that
Yeah,
committee
and
off
to
the ground.
confirm, that's just something the county manager has to do. It doesn't need like county board approval.
No, that's the county manager's, discretion.
Okay, if there aren't any other commission questions on those topics, let's move to item 2C, the Fair Housing Report.
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of backdrop on this, just so you're aware. We skipped a few years of the Fair Housing Report. We used to do it every 2 years. And if you look in our website, I think we may still have some of the older Fair Housing Reports listed. We had one specific vendor, a very small vendor, I think somewhere out in Virginia. That contract ran out the year I came on board, which was 2018. So then since we were doing it every 2 years, next one I think would have been like 2020, but then we had the pandemic, and that's sort of what stalled things. And in the meantime, we were also didn't have a vendor, so we were looking for a new vendor. In case anyone questions about the delay and why we did not do it every 2 years, now we're back on track, and the plan is to continue doing it every 2 years. So last year, we did an RFP and procured a vendor, Equal Rights Center, which I'm sure hopefully many of you have heard of. They're a national civil rights organization. Part of their work is doing civil rights and fair housing testing. And so they started, I think it was almost I want to say 7 months maybe of work that produced a report that is now up and on the site, on the county's website. And they found some areas that were of concern that we're hoping to do more training on. We actually have money, not hoping, we're planning on using the ERC to do training, especially on SOI, on disability, and on the areas identified of concern in the report and recommended by the ERC. We're also planning on, again, testing again next year. So that's all coming. And then that's in addition to the work already being done in terms of the departments that are doing some outreach and education, and I can get into that as well. So my plan here, Jimmy, was to do a very basic overview because you guys have the report and, I'm sure you've seen it. But basically starting in May 2024, the Equal Rights Center conducted fair housing testing. They tested 56 they did 65 rental tests over the whole time period, covering 56 different properties that were managed by 48 different housing providers. They selected those properties. They also recommended the bases. So we did not choose properties. We did not tell them what bases we wanted tested. I think we did tell them we wanted source of funds tests done, given the recentness of that bases being added and the general concern and interest in the community. So they did do that. The others they recommended. And if you look at old reports, this is a vast improvement because in the past, I think it was only just usually race that was tested and maybe sometimes national origin, because I specifically recall asking in 2018 why we were not doing disability testing. And I was told by the vendor we previously used, well, that's just not something we do. It's not a best practice. It's hard to do that. So this is great that we were able to get that in this round. So the disability tests, they were 15 single-sided phone tests, which means one person was on the phone talking to the the landlord of the property. Of the 15 disability tests, evidence of potential discrimination in one test related to an emotional support dog was found. And there were 3 inconclusive tests that ERC basically recommended retesting in the future. They also tested familial status. There were 10 phone tests. Evidence of potential discrimination was found in 2 tests. And then there were 2 inclusive tests that, again, they recommended, future retesting. There were also tested national origin. And here they did 20 email rental tests instead of phone. And they found evidence of potential discrimination in 4 tests and one retest. So 5 in-person master tests were also done for this, and all 5 were inconclusive. And the national origin bases that we're trying to test was white, El Salvadorian, and Ethiopian. And that was based on, in other words, white versus Ethiopian, white versus El Salvadorian, Latino. And that was based on the demographics of Arlington County. And then the 4th basis was source of funds. These were 15 phone tests they did. Evidence of potential discrimination was found in 6 tests, and 1 was inconclusive, and they recommended that be tested in the future again, that same rental property. So we're working with them to see, what the best way to go about the next round of testing is, which I can't give you a date, but again, we're committed to doing this every year, and funding has been put aside for it. Funding has already been put aside for the training and outreach we want ERC to do, and we've already spoken to them about that. But if you're asking me, I won't be able to give you a date on when that'll start. We're hoping to start that soon. We were actually trying to get all the information together on what the county is already doing. And what we understand from ERC is maybe some of the larger landlords might need more of the education and outreach than, say, some of the smaller ones. So we're probably going to be putting some focus there. That's a very, very high level overview of that. And if anyone has not seen the report and wants it sent directly to you, I can do that. But I'm happy to take any questions on what we're planning on doing. Like, I know, Jimmy, you had asked, what are departments doing? So departments have, I reached out to one of our departments that does this, and basically they have done, I think, 15 workshops and outreach and education on this. I'm just trying to pull up the exact details. And that has touched on source of funds. They developed a fair housing awareness campaign that they launched in the spring of 2024. This included materials on renter rights and responsibilities. They also created a packet of information for county resources and distributed that to over 9,000 affordable affordable unit properties. They attended more than 15 workshops to provide fair housing information, and this included countywide events, such as live Arlington Information Fair and a Fair Housing 101 event sponsored by the Arlington Landlord Partnership. They also engaged with more than 25 apartment managers to provide fair housing guidance, flyers, posters, and those kinds of materials. So I think these were some of the efforts you were trying to see if there was a way to collaborate on. So I'm not sure what they're doing next or what the schedule of the training on their end is, but we can definitely ask them for that and see if there's something scheduled in the fall where if you would like to collaborate with them, I can put you in touch with who their point person would be. Or if there's something the commission wants to do on its own, like if you're thinking you want to host a virtual, SOI, maybe you want to focus on one basis, source of funds, and you want to do a virtual event around that. That could be something we can notice for you and try to help you set up.
Right, that is very helpful. I'll open up to the other commissioners first. Any questions, comments, insights in response to that section of the agenda? Okay,
Have you guys all? Go ahead.
What was that?
I was wondering if you all had a chance to read the fair housing report or look at it.
Yeah, I believe I emailed it to all the commission members. I did, right?
You did.
Okay.
I was able to read through it.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm happy to reshare it if you haven't. It's pretty robust, so I'd encourage everyone to take a look at it. We're really happy that compared to other reports we used to do and have the work done, this was really, really robust.
And then I guess, one question I just kind of had is there any way for us to measure or even get, just a rough feel for how, how well the whole source of funds change is known within the community? Because most people I've mentioned it to have no idea that's now a protected area.
I don't, unless you surveyed the whole county, I don't know how you find out. However, one thing I could do is speak to one of the departments that, deals with that and just to see if they're getting any sense. I do think some folks don't know. I think that is an issue out there. Like, I think we've heard of instances where some landlords really are just like, we don't take it. And that's something the county is working really hard to address because it is a recent change. So there is that. Right, but that only belabors the point that we've got to get the education and the materials out so folks know. And I'm not sure how accurate it would be talking to that department because that department they deal with housing all the time. So maybe well, everybody knows, But I think there's some kind of a disconnect. So that's another reason why we want to use the ERC.
Sure. Yeah. And if you wouldn't mind, like maybe reaching out to them and just asking that question. I mean, you're right. If they say, oh yeah, everybody knows, I'm not sure it tells us anything because of what they work on. But if they tell nobody seems to know, then we got a really good indicator that people really don't know if they're coming there and they don't. So that might be, an issue.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Great. Anything else on this topic before we go to agenda item 3?
I have a couple follow-up questions to that. So is the county partnering with any housing counseling agencies?
Or the outreach that they've already done or are planning to do?
Yes.
I'd have to check with the department on that. And so you're saying any housing counseling?
Yeah, housing counseling agencies in the area where, not only do they talk about the home buying process, the rental process, they also should be educating on fair housing. And sometimes do a lot of education in that area. And I'm just wondering if we're sort of linked or partnering with them in that regard.
I don't have an answer for you. I'd have to check with that specific department, but I can ask them that and follow up with you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's a good thought. I'd be very curious to hear the answer to that question as well. Anyone else? Okay, so I think, I labeled number 3, fair housing report discussion, which we basically just had. And then this next topic is kind of a mix between 3 and 4, which is this fair housing assistance program, which has been brought up to us by the chair of the Housing Commission. And I think, Gurjit, did you end up scheduling, you were going to address that commission, is that right?
Yeah, so I spoke about that at the outset. Like I mixed everything around. Sorry, Jimmy, I threw you off on that. I'm connecting with Fairfax next week to just get a little lay of the land before, and see what they're thinking. I'd already spoken to them once. That's what you and I talked about in terms of their experience with it. So I'll have more to share with you after
So,
after
I
next
don't know if the
Thursday.
entire commission knows what this conversation is, like what the question is from the Fair Housing Commission.
Yeah, so Gurjit, can you just give a high-level overview of what that program is and what the I don't know if I want to call it the ask, but for lack of a better term, what the ask that the Housing Commission chair has been making is?
So essentially, how we have, or I think, how we have a work share agreement with the EEOC, where for employment discrimination cases, we dual file them where we can, and, we do a joint education outreach amount with them once a year. For those efforts, we get paid a certain amount. It's not a whole lot. The Housing Commission has been advocating for us, and that makes us a FEPA, by the way, Fair Employment Practices Agency. They've been advocating for us to have a similar partnership. I think it's called a FAHAP with HUD, so that we could similarly process housing discrimination complaints. And as you already know, we already take housing discrimination complaints under our ordinance, but this would be like another avenue, another layer of, more resources for complainants, right? So we were looking at that. And for this, you get federal funding if the program is still in place under the current administration and funded. You get a certain amount of money for it, and then you do have to, you get paid for it, but you have to comply with tighter deadlines. So what we did was we reached out to someone from HUD a while ago, I want to say a few months, just to talk to them about the program. And at that time, this person was saying, that they weren't sure if the program was going to be around. So it was a little uncertain in terms of its future, in terms of funding counties for it. And then afterwards, I think it was Fairfax that has that program. So we spoke to someone at Fairfax just to get a little sense of what what the, I guess, workload was like and what was required. And it seemed to be a significant load of work on top of like what you would normally think for EEOC workshare cases. And by that, I mean, we were told by the county that it's, the way tighter deadlines, like instead of a year or more, you might have like 100 days. And that HUD was very, very particular about when, if you're a little late, you kind of get dinged for it in terms of pay. And they're like you need someone to be very, very on top of the cases. In other words, which is great, as it should be, right? We all want to be accountable and timely, but it requires staffing. So I remember at that time, the person telling me that, we're actually recruiting right now, not even just for like an investigator, but we actually need somebody just full-time devoted to just being a FAP coordinator because it's that much work. And, you just need staffing for it. So one of the challenges we currently have, as we showed before, is we were literally 3 people total working for a few years. We've only just gotten staffed to our levels now, which for that kind of a relationship are inadequate. If I can't be more blunt than that. So if we were to become a partner right now, we would not be able to comply likely and meet with that contract because we just don't have the staffing to be, if it's that amount of work. Now, something significantly has changed and it's not, then it's different. But that's on the ask that's out there.
Yeah, but just to clarify for everyone, currently, the Commonwealth of Virginia, through the Department of Professional Licensure and Regulation, does this function for Arlington. So the ask is for Arlington to kind of create its own. Right now, Fairfax is the only local jurisdiction in the Commonwealth that does it at the local level. Everyone else goes to the Commonwealth. And I have just kind of 2 broad concerns. So just for background for folks, I sat on a commission for the Commonwealth that heard a lot of these cases for the real estate licensees, and I'm familiar with the process from at least what the Commonwealth does. One, this goes back to our earlier conversation of what happens when there's a finding of cause, because my experience at the Commonwealth level is if there's a finding of cause of housing discrimination, it is referred to the Commonwealth's attorney for review to decide whether or not there is a cause to step forward for an actual housing discrimination case. So that's one question I have here is would we be somehow removing kind of enforcement for people that are complaining? But two, and this is the bigger one, Gurjeet, that I just have the question on resources with HUD, is my understanding is that HUD does not include source of funds as a cause. So one of my questions is, even if we become a local entity that can do this, could you even get reimbursed for source of funds discrimination, which is one of our most commonly found forms of discrimination from the survey?
Yeah, I don't know. I would, if I had to guess, I would say no. If they're not
That's
accepting
my
it.
understanding, and that's
Yeah.
that's actually my biggest concern with this ask is I don't know if it would cover what we found to be our most common form of housing discrimination. But I think
Yeah.
those are my two big questions I have to this proposal and where we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the proposal is in terms of, I mean, that would be with the board in terms of where it is right now. I just know that we have definitely made the county manager and the board is aware of the resource issue. I completely hear your questions, Maggie, and they are a valid concern because, as you said, if source of income is the biggest, one of the biggest issues, and they don't accept it or pay for it, then what does that do? But I think on our end, I just have to be honest, the staffing is a big issue from what, I mean, we were essentially told, like, just make sure you have enough people doing this. So, and now that we have 2 additional employees, that they do not currently have bandwidth to take on a whole plate of housing cases. From what we're hearing, I think that would literally require like more staff to do that. So that's next week's call, Jimmy, is to just get, see if anything's changed. Maybe something's changed. Maybe housing cases just dropped and hey, it's just, nothing. I suspect not. But just to get more of an idea for our informational purposes on like what it involves, what it requires, because would we love to do it? Of course. I mean, why wouldn't we want to offer more resources, right? But I think the worst thing that can happen is you erode trust when you say you're going to do something and then you're either late on it or you can't deliver because you don't have the resources for it. So we just want to make sure we're not setting ourselves and the community up for failure and that we know what we need and then we can advocate for that, if that's what the board thinks is a good idea to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then one follow-up I would have as well. Do we know how much federal funding this program would provide, both upfront and per case? And if not, can we get specific numbers on that next week?
Yes, I can ask how much that is. I think it's like a 3-year kind of like trial period. After that, they don't give you funding, but for about 3 years, I think they give you funding. Don't quote me, but if I'm remembering, I thought it was about 160,000, but I wasn't sure. I could really be wrong. So I'll find out.
Okay, right on. That'd be interesting. And a side thing, if we were considering going down the road and making a recommendation on this, I would be curious how much this funding is susceptible to the current administration deciding not to spend funds, because that would be good to know.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner comments or questions on this topic? Right, if not, we'll move on to open forum. If there are any guests or community members who are here who are not commission members who would like to speak. Wanda.
Yes, I got a couple of questions. I visited the Human Rights Commission website and I was unable to locate any 2025 meeting agendas or meeting minutes or links to previous meetings. And I know those are found on other commissions' website. And I was just wondering, for transparency purposes, will those links be placed on the Human Rights Commission's website?
Wanda, thank you for bringing it up. We were actually in the process of updating our site, so we made a few changes. We'll be making sure that those are up there.
And in addition, since listening to the meeting tonight, will it be possible to place a link to the ERC report, the Fair Housing Report?
I think that's already on our site.
Yeah, I'll grab the link for you just a second.
Oh yeah, you're just gonna put it in the chat. Thank you.
To me, it would also be helpful if it could be placed on the website where everything is centralized in relations to this commission. And also have a question in terms of the calendar of future meetings. I went on the website and I didn't see any meetings listed for 2025. I was looking for a meeting for last month, but I couldn't find any link or any information as to whether the meeting was canceled, whether there's no meeting in August. So is it possible to put a list of future meetings?
So
on the
Wanda, as
website?
you're went August, we continued to follow the same tradition that you're aware of when you served, which was in August. There's typically no meetings. That's why you saw nothing on there.
Okay, well, I'm not making any assumptions, Gurjeet, because there's a new ordinance, there's new members, so I'm not making any
Right.
assumptions. I'm just asking if the meetings, future meetings can be placed on the website.
So,
Okay, go ahead, Anna.
hang on just a second. They are listed, unless something's happened. Hang on.
Just put the
Clicking
link in
on the
the
wrong.
chat so you can see it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it looks
Clicking on
like
the wrong.
the 2025, there's something at the website, so it's not populating the meeting dates on the HRC calendar,
Yeah.
like HRC page. So I don't know if there's something going on the web page.
So
There might be.
typically the meetings are listed on the right side of the page. So and a link to each one of the meetings is there. So there's listed, the ones are shown there through November.
Yes, I think the question is, it's the accordion on the left in that center part of the page that has meetings for the other years, but not for 2025. Probably like
I'll
a
see
widget
what's
and the
up with
website
that.
is off.
Okay, I'll see what's up with that. I'm sorry. And if you look under on the main Human Rights Commission page, there's a list under reports and special events, and there's a link to the fair housing testing reports, and those are all where you can find those.
Are you
I'll
by
put a
chance
link.
able to that link in the chat? And if not, would you be able to drop that one? It is?
Yeah. I just dropped in the main page and then also the reports page, which has all the fair housing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Does that help, Wanda?
It did, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Wanda, thank you very much for bringing those items to our attention, in particular the meetings issue. So
Of course.
we appreciate that.
Sure.
Anything else? All right, in that case, we will move on to item 6, which I know Gurjeet was so excited for. We almost went for it at item 1, which is extensions.
Yeah, we just have one extension. We're just we were having difficulty getting the complainant to talk to us. So we just need some extra time to wrap that up. So hoping you guys don't have a problem with that extension.
Is there a time like for extensions? You're asking for like 30 days, 60 days?
So when you extend under the ordinance, it goes to that year. We don't like to take the year. We just like to wrap that up as quickly as possible. So what you would be voting on would be whether or not you would extend for a year. But
Okay.
again, we don't like to take the year.
Are you able to share anything about the case?
Let me see if I can.
Well, I can tell you that it won't be a year to complete it. It's almost done. It's just that it's hitting the 1-year mark where we have to ask for an extension. But we think we're going to have it wrapped up in the next month or so, probably. But we just had some difficulty getting the complainant to respond to it.
This is an employment discrimination case. And basically the complainant is alleging termination following complaints of harassment. And that's essentially, we tried to contact the complainant several times in July and August, twice in July, once in August again. And then asked again that they respond by August, but we haven't heard anything. So we're likely, sometimes this is the case where we're literally up against the 1-year mark, but then as soon as it's extended, if it were like a month, it's probably like a month out.
Any other questions from commission members before we take a vote on this? If not, I would like to entertain a motion to grant the extension.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. And I believe that was our last agenda item. So thank you very much, everyone. And I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hey, Jimmy, just one quick thing. I don't think I
Yeah.
received I don't know if I received the minutes, but whoever is doing the minutes, if you guys could send them to Anna and me so we could post them.
I'm
That's
not
me. I owe you the minutes. I'll have those to you shortly.
Okay,
Thank
awesome.
you, Sharon.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Great, thanks. Night, everyone.